I'll always remember my first Corn magazine. It was like 20 to 30 pictures, but it was absolutely magical. Like, I would come home from school and just be so excited to see, ooh, let's go look at this magazine again. And, it's like, wasn't the same, it was just the same thing over and over again, but I was so enthralled by it. And then after about 6 months, it started to get a little bit boring. And then you start going into videos, and then you start seeing weird stuff. At one point, you just keep going down the line, and then you start getting to some heinous stuff. And you're just like, what am I watching anymore? And, that's the whole point, is that this stuff doesn't have an ending point. You keep watching it, and your mind starts to twist and pervert itself into this weird thing. And that's what this whole process is about. It's the unwinding of it. So instead of going forward, we're moving backwards. We're kind of reversing back in time. Now, you're just looking at Instagram. That's not that bad. And so on this stage of the process, this one kind of builds on the last one. So the first stage is the introduction of the stimulation ladder. The second one is about daily limits. Now phase 3 is about weekly limits. So this is where we start to introduce abstaining from corn a whole day. So, we'll start with instead of 7 days a week, where you get to do only one time a day, you do only 6 days a week, one time a day. And again, we start from the top of the stimulation ladder again. Now you get to unlock, and you get to go and watch whatever new, fresh stuff you can find, long videos, whatever you want, but only one time a day and only 6 days a week. You get to choose what 6 days of the week you want to do. And that's great, because sometimes, you're like, want to save it for the end of the week. Sometimes you want to use it early. And I know this sounds dumb, but I like that. It's nice to be able to have that thing, and then, sometimes you can charge it up and do 6 days in a row, or you can have it, whatever you want. And that freedom is really nice. And your goal is to slowly wean that down. 6 days a week, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, and of course to where you're going to eventually go to, where it's nothing. Now, there is a stage 4, but it actually is kind of in synchrony with stage 3. So in stage 3, it's, weekly limits. So 6 days a week, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, right? Again, you can choose however much you want. You're kind of going down slowly, so for 6 days a week, from high, once you hit the low, then you do 5 days a week, you go back to high, and then you go low. 4 days a week, then you go back to high stimulation, and then low 4 days a week. Now, you can do it that way. Stage 4, which kind of helps in addition, you can kind of cheat in a way. So stage 3 is 6 days a week. Stage 4 is changing the metric to be monthly instead of weekly. And when I'm saying monthly, I mean like 4 weeks. That's really the more accurate way. But 4 weeks. So what it is that you can start to stagger it. So sometimes going from 6 days a week to 5 days a week is a little bit too big a jump. So what I would do is take the monthly view. So instead of 4 weeks in a row, instead of 4 weeks in a row, where I'm doing 6 days a week, what I'll do is I'll do 6 days a week on the first week, 5 days a week on the second week, 6 days a week on the 3rd week, and then 5 days a week on the 4th week. So what it is, I'm staggering it, and I'm slowly bleeding it down, whether through the week limit lens or the month limit lens. And that helps me kind of slow it down the way I come down to a sustainable way. And then again, at one point, you'll have full control of your drive. And yeah, so like the whole thing about this process that I found very helpful was that every time I would drop and sacrifice something, I get to go up back to the high stimulation ladder again. So it goes back to you give up something, but you get something back in return, which is you get it back to see new stuff again. Because, watching bikinis and Instagram, I mean, it's not as stimulating, right? And yeah, maybe I give up a day of the week, but hey, I get to see some fresh new stuff again. And you paid for it because you have tuned your baseline down. And so that allows you to, see new stuff and be really freshly stimulated again. Just like my first Korn magazine. And that's the process. You're basically just bleeding this thing dry until you have full control. And then once you can accomplish this, and you will kind of feel it, then that's when you should do that 4-week test that I gave you. And I'll put this link in the description below. You do the 4-week wing test, and this will see whether or not you have built up the controls so that you can do what I'm asking you. Because it's not just enough to abstain. You can't be like an alcoholic who has been sober for 7 years. He takes one sip of a drink and he goes on this massive bender and he's full-blown alcoholic now. You can't be at that level. Like, it's great if you can abstain, but what I'm asking of you is something much stronger. And you need to be able to get to the point where if I say you go and drink 1 drink a night every other night, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you drink 1 drink during those days, and then the next following week you don't drink at all, like, you need to be able to do that. If I go and say 1 week, go crazy, you can drink, get blasted every day, and then when I tell you stop, you need to stop. Like, you need to have that level of control. When you can get to that level of control, then that is a tool we can use to start to get you to recover from your ED. So that's something I just really want to emphasize, is that it's not enough to be able to abstain. You need to be able to completely blast yourself with your favorite stuff, and then the next day, don't even look at it for a month. Like, that should be nothing to you. And if you can't do that, then you're not ready to really embark on this journey. So again, I'm with Primal Hair. I have struggled with ED for over a decade. Found a way to solve this problem naturally without any pills, supplements, or anything. If you feel this is something that may be affecting you, there's a quiz on primalhair.com, and you can sign up to the mailing list and take it, see if this is something that can help you and increase your performance in the bedroom.